Arkansas football might be on a bye week, but the action's heating up for Razorback basketball and baseball. Let's dive in and talk about it.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, a crossover Friday edition between the Pod at the Palace and the Bombastic Podcast. That means that I am Curtis Wilkerson and I am joined by Andrew Ellis. This is our Friday thing. We come together, we cross over, we talk hoops, we talk baseball, and there's plenty to get into. Andrew, before we dive in though, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. I'm appreciating, our bye week. I'm trying to enjoy it the best I can. Only problem is we don't have an opponent or a rival to make fun of on today's Friday episode of the Locked On. So we had to wing it a little bit and actually talk real sports for a little bit. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, what's going on here? Let's start with basketball and then we'll get into baseball. This is a perfect time for a bye week though, because you got a lot of stuff heating up for both of those programs. Obviously, Arkansas basketball is right around the corner. We're excited to get down to the other parts of the state where you're going to be able to get your first glimpse of Razorback basketball. They'll be in Hot Springs Saturday, Pine Bluff on Sunday. We'll be down there for that, and then SEC Media Day right around the corner. So we're getting ready to learn a lot about this team, which I'm excited about. And fall ball's heating up. Arkansas's got a little doozy coming up against Oklahoma State starting today, this afternoon, and then tomorrow. So good stuff. But Arkansas basketball officially, we knew this. We know what the schedule was going to look like, but they officially released it on Thursday. And along with that came tip-off times and TV designations, all that good stuff. Really cool. I want to talk about the top 5 games on this Arkansas basketball schedule, but Andrew, I want to hit you with a couple things before we do, because I took a few notes I wanted to share with the people and with you, even though you probably already know them. The home slate stinks, man. It's just not, it leaves a lot to be desired, which we knew that was the case, but trust me when I tell you, hint, hint, wink, wink, things are about to get really cool at Bud Walton Arena in the future when it comes to scheduling. So go ahead and bank on that. But the Kansas exhibition, that's already sold out. So for people who are like, damn, I'm not going to be able to watch that. Yes, you are, because it's going to be on SEC Network, October 25th. That's very cool. There are 8 games on this schedule, Andrew, for Arkansas that start at 8 p.m. or later. That is the most in a long time. So y'all better get your caffeine fix in. Going to be some late nights for Arkansas basketball, including a Niner at Vanderbilt. That is absurd, man. What do you think about all these late games, even on Saturdays?
It's a product of Arkansas now being the cool kids. Arkansas's prime time. Arkansas's getting those cool ESPN, those nice billings on the schedule, which it's cool for TV purposes. It's going to have a lot of eyeballs paying attention to the Arkansas Razorbacks nationally. But not great for the fans and not great for the folks like us who cover the team and have work to do after the game. So it's not ideal, but ultimately it's really just kind of something we're going to have to get used to, because Arkansas is a program in high demand and they're going to be playing at prime time a lot of time. But as Jack Kinley said, prime time is whenever we play.
That's right. Yeah, I like that a lot. Well, let's talk about this schedule for a second. And like I said, we've done full-length podcasts about this before because we've kind of known. But now that we got the full thing officially in front of us, I just kind of wanted to go through and highlight what I think are the top 5 games on this schedule. And then I want you to tell me why I'm wrong, what order you'd have it in. If there were some others that might fit into the mix a little bit, we'll see what you think. Number 5 for me, I've got this CBS Thanksgiving Day special against Illinois in Kansas City. It's unique. It's the first time they're doing this on CBS for college basketball right after the Thanksgiving Day football game. I think it's really cool, regional enough to where, both fan bases are going to be able to be out there, and it's going to be 2 top 25 teams. Number 4, I've got the Baylor game in Dallas on November the 9th. I mean, what a great game for the opening weekend of college basketball. It just so happens to coincide with a bye for Razorback football. Another really good matchup between 2 really good teams. Number 3, I've got the Jimmy V Classic. Arkansas, Michigan, Madison Square Garden, December 10th. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. An argument could probably be made for that one to be higher. But number 2, I went with Alabama in Bud Walton Arena. They might be the preseason number 1. If not, they'll be number 2 in the country. That is by far, I think, the best home game on the schedule. Saturday, February 8th, Bud Walton Arena. Nate Oates coming to town. And number 1, spoiler alert, at Kentucky, Rupp Arena on February 1st.
I'll tell you, Curtis, I think that's a good list. I'm excited for all 5 of those games. And,
like
for a second there, I was like, oh, wait, is he going all non-conference? Is that what's going on here? But no, I like that Bama game is one that, like, I feel like we've talked about a lot of games because the Kentucky one is one that everyone obviously circles. And there's all these cool non-conference games and all these dates that we have, like the Thanksgiving Day. You got the Madison Square Garden game and things that are being talked about, but nobody's circling that February 8th game at Bud Walton. Is going to be 7 p.m., not at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Night 7 p.m. night game in Bud Walton Arena. That's going to be an awesome crowd and one that I feel like when it comes around, people are going to be excited. And I'm assuming Bama will be ranked in the top 5 or 10 or whatever the case may be. But Curtis, there's a glaring omission from you on your list. I can't believe you didn't mention it. Frankly, Curtis, it's not the game I'm most excited for, but it's one that, like, it's the conference opener, which is always fun because it's nice to open up conference play and the season kind of becomes real at that point. But that January 4th game at Tennessee is one that I've really got my eye on. Like, one, it's going to be a tough game. It's one of the toughest games on the schedule. It might be literally the toughest if you're just counting on, like, Arkansas's chances to win. But I also just think you got the Jonas Adu factor there a little bit. Tennessee and Arkansas have had some nice battles there over the years. That's one that, Arkansas, it's not like a must win. We're like, oh, you got to start off 1-0 an SEC player or anything. But I think that's going to be a nice little tone setter for what's going to be a pretty loaded conference slate. And that's a tough game there there on the road. I like that Tennessee game a little bit. I'm trying to think if there's any you left off. We're not getting the revenge tour for Oakland. Cal needs to exercise his demon because Oakland is really, Arkansas should be honestly thanking Oakland a lot, because they're a big driver in why Cal is now the head coach at the University of Arkansas, because they eliminated Kentucky in the NCAA tournament last year. That game's December 30th, right before that Tennessee game. So really that week, apparently just a massive week for Arkansas basketball.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I had 3 honorable mentions, and the very first ones, like who missed the cut for me, the first one was that Tennessee game for sure. And I thought about that one long and hard, but I decided to keep it off. But that was kind of in my 6th slot. The other 2 that I had at home against Texas, just because Texas, right? And I know they play them home and away in a really rough stretch in right between Kentucky and Bama, who are both on that list. But the home game against Texas, fans will love that one. And then I also had at Miami on there. And I know that's not the sexiest program out there or whatever, but it is a true road test for Arkansas as part of that SEC ACC challenge, which is pretty cool there. Those were a couple other ones that stood out to me.
Yeah, I think that home game against Texas is really going to be one where, once you get into that late February stretch, that's whenever the excitement for college basketball, and by this point, Arkansas will have racked up, like 23, 24 wins already, be number 1 in the country. Right. Everybody will be buzzing. But I feel like that's going to be a nice game to kind of set the tone going into March, we talked about this yesterday on the show, that it's crazy that Arkansas is going to play 3 regular season games in the month of March before the SEC tournament, before the NCAA tournament. But I feel like that Texas game is going to be because Texas is a team that we're assuming is going to be a lock to be an NCAA tournament team. One of the teams you're going to kind of compare yourself to as you're entering March. I think that Texas game at home at Bud Walton is a nice little barometer for, like, hey, how ready are we for what's about to lie ahead? If we can whip up on Texas at home, plus, like you mentioned, you play them exactly 3 weeks prior, February 5th at Texas, where Arkansas got roughed up a couple years ago. So maybe you'll be wanting some revenge from that game, or you'll be wanting to build on your huge road win. Like, regardless of what happens for either team, that home game against Texas, that's one of the games I wouldn't say I'm most excited for, but it's a big one up there. But I got to be honest, Curtis, I'm also just really looking forward to that January 8th Ole Miss game. At Bud Walton. It'll be the first SEC home game Arkansas plays. The Chris Beard factor now has a fun storyline there. I got my eye on that one. You got a nice little 2-game home stretch to start SEC play with Ole Miss and Florida. So those are a few. We could go through literally every single game on the schedule, which we've done a few times, but there's a lot of games you could make a case for where I think around the fan base, certain people might have different ones circled for different reasons.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it. Certainly a lot of excitement for Arkansas basketball year 1 under John Calipari. It's right around the corner, but baseball, there's been a lot going on, some fall scrimmages. They got the Oklahoma State thing coming up. I know Andrew's got some numbers he wants to throw at me, so stay tuned for that after a quick break. Guys, you ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? I think we've probably all been there, whether we like to admit it or not. It's time to stop worrying about your performance and get Hims so you can feel confident knowing that you can get hard and stay hard whenever you're in the mood. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing access to affordable sexual health treatments, all from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments, such as chewable hard mints, proven treatments like Viagra and Cialis, or the generics that come up to 95% cheaper. The process is simple and it's 100% online. No uncomfortable doctor's visits. Don't have to worry about anything like that. Just answer a series of questions on their site and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you and it ships to you for free. No insurance is needed. Pay one low price for your treatments, online visits, ongoing shipments, and provider messaging. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers. So if ED is getting you down, it's time to find the option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's Hims, HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable, compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plans.
Razorback fans, we are entering the prime golden hours for sports betting. Whether you're betting on college football, NFL, MLB playoffs, UFC, like Curtis and I like to do, you can win big with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you can get started today with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel.com. $200 in bonus bets for any $5 bet. If you've got an idea of some of these college football games you like this weekend, you like the value with LSU plus 3.5 at home against Ole Miss in Death Valley, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is the place to do it. Visit FanDuel.com to look at the odds and get started with America's #1 sportsbook today.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast crossover edition. We're flipping over from Potted to Palace to Bombastic because I know Andrew's got a lot of stats, a lot of numbers. You said you want to throw some things at me about this Razorback baseball team.
So, Curtis, back in the day when you and I worked at our previous employer, I remember I used to always do fall baseball updates, and I would always cover it as thoroughly as I could because I just wanted to find a way to make a difference. And every now and then I'd get a little bit of pushback where people would be like, man, you're overreacting. It's just fall ball. Like, it doesn't matter that much. I don't care what so-and-so's hitting or whatever. It's just fall practice and it's playing against the same team, which is true to an extent. So I figured instead of Curtis taking you position by position and being like, here's how the battle's playing out here, here's how the battle's playing out here, I'm going to cut right to the chase. The 5 stats that I feel like kind of tell the story, at least what everyone needs to know about Arkansas's baseball so far this fall. And you, as someone who, loves Arkansas baseball, you enjoy watching it. And you were disappointed by Arkansas's offense last year. I know you were. We talked about it a good bit. I know you're looking to see, hey, is this team really going to have some of these guys that are going to step up and be big hitters? Are we going to have a different identity for this baseball lineup? So I just wanted to run through at least what I feel like are the most important storylines of fall ball so far. And we've touched on a little bit of these with the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, but I feel like people will appreciate the stats, which I do have to give a shout out to Andrew Hutchinson, Daniel Shee, Dudley Dawson, and a few other people who help contribute. We all kind of come together in the media to compile these stats. But Curtis, I touched on this yesterday on the show, and DVH talk about it. Stolen bases has been a popular topic in the streets for Arkansas baseball, and it's weird. So in fall ball, DVH always says, I give everyone the green light. You can steal if you want to steal. And so he uses that to kind of see who likes to steal bases. If you're not stealing bases in fall ball when you have the automatic green light, I'm not going to give you the steal sign in the spring whenever we're trying to win a game. We can't afford to have an out. So then shout out to Hutch for putting this together. Through 15 scrimmages last year throughout fall practice, Arkansas was 40 of 53 stolen bases. Through 10 scrimmages this year, Arkansas was 53 of 62. And now that it's, now that the fall ball is almost complete, it's almost double. Arkansas's steal rate has gone like through the roof. Now, is Arkansas going to really be stealing, 5-6 bases a game during the season? Probably not. This team's got a lot of power. They don't like to run themselves into outs. But I just feel like it speaks to just how athletic this lineup is and how Arkansas does know they've got a little bit of an issue in the postseason in terms of being able to create offense when they get in these low-scoring affairs. And so I think Arkansas's lineup this year is going to be better equipped to deal with some of these issues. I just feel like it's a good sign that this team is more willing to run the bases. They're not going to be home run or bust, which is kind of what everyone wants to know about. But speaking of home runs, if they do have to rely on home runs, my next storytelling stat, Curtis, comes from Mr. Brent Iredale, who I'm sure you're already sick of hearing about. Vahiva Aloy was the guy last year who, I just kept saying his name because he kept hitting home runs in fall ball. And again, it's just fall practice. It doesn't really matter. But Curtis, you're a math guy. You follow baseball. You tell me 15 of 34, 5 home runs, which, by the way, that's a 441 batting average for those counting at home. He's got 6 stolen bases as well. He is slashing 441, 500 OBP, and a 912 slugging percentage. I feel like I don't care what level of baseball you're at, that plays a little bit.
I would say so. That's that's pretty incredible. Couldn't happen to a better guy either. I mean, you love the storyline behind him combined with just coming in and mashing in the fall. That's the stuff of legends, Andrew. I'm just going to throw it out there. That's what legends are made of.
It's the stuff of legends, and it's one of those things where, look, it's in fall ball, you're trying to decide, are these stats real or whatever. When you have them that lopsided, I feel like you can we can talk about it a little bit. That's legitimate
against good pitching.
Right, and against Arkansas pitching, which again is not bad. We know. I mean, a couple of those home runs came off of some dudes that like Gabe Gackle that we know were going to be good. A couple of guys that I haven't talked about a ton on the podcast that I want to introduce you to, Curtis. 2 guys that I feel like were 2 of Arkansas's top transfers that kind of flew under the radar because these weren't guys that were massive names at their previous schools. I'm talking about Charles Davilon, who's transferring from Dunk City, FGCU. Which I did not know had a baseball program, but we got a French-Canadian guy that is going to potentially be starting for Arkansas in center field. And he had a really nice freshman year. He's actually a draft-eligible sophomore, but I feel like he's been as advertised for Arkansas. He's hitting exactly 300. He's got a few home runs, hit 4 doubles, only struck out 4 times. He reminds me a little bit of Tavian Josenberger in the leadoff spot. Just a tough at-bat, really aggressive at the plate, but can also be one of those guys that's going to be 10 to 12 pitch at bats. He's just going to be a fun guy to watch. He does roll his pants up over his knees, though. I do got to get that out there. And Josenberger did that well. Where do you stand on that? Are you anti rolling the pants up over the knee?
Over the knee, I don't like. I don't mind showing the sock, but over the knee is a little much for me. I got to be honest.
Well, at least it's not like football where there used to be knee pads.
Yes.
And they've just done away with knee pads in football. But the other transfer that I feel like he's not getting a ton of love because, again, these numbers I'm reading are not blowing away, ones you tell your kids about or anything. But Logan Maxwell's hitting 313. He hit 333 last year at TCU, hit 305 the year before. Arkansas, I feel like, is in need of guys like this where it's just that simple. Dude gets on base. He's a high average guy. Only has 4 career home runs. He's only got 1 home run this fall, but he's drawn a ton of walks. His on-base percentage is .463. I feel like both of those guys are ones that are flying a little bit under the radar because of our guy, Brent Iredale, the Aussie, who's kind of stealing some of the headlines a little bit. But I feel like both of those transfer outfielders have been hits for Arkansas in the portal, and they've been what they've been advertised to be, which I feel like is a good thing. You need guys like that in your lineup. But I also want to touch on a guy that you've seen play before, and that's Ryder Helfrich, a friend of the program who's been in our studios. If you could script out where you're all right, he had some moments as a freshman, but we really want to see him take that next step as a sophomore. Ryder has done all of that and more. It's looked exactly like what you would want in your head a sophomore, former blue chip prospect to look like. He's hitting 364. He's got 4 home runs, and his home runs, he doesn't get cheated on those. I mean, he's hitting them 430, 440. These are mammoth shots. He's got a couple doubles. He's even stolen a few bases. And again, getting back to the small ball theme, he's got 3 sack bunts. Arkansas has been doing a lot of situational work, doing some weird stuff. Your catcher, not one you'd expect, especially for one that's hitting for power. He's got 3 sack bunts, which leads the team. So Arkansas is trying to show you they've got a little bit of a different identity. And the last person I want to introduce you to, Curtis, is a young man by the name of Cole Gibbler, left-handed pitcher from Texas. So historically, pitchers that are freshmen suck in fall practice. It's just how it is. Hagen Smith's the only one I can think of who didn't suck. Gabe Gackle, you saw how good he was as a freshman. He got roughed up last fall. There's all these freshmen that come in. Brady Tigert, I remember his freshman year, I didn't even think he was going to make the freaking team. I was like, man, these guys really struggling. Cole Gibbler has said to hell with all that. He's thrown in 5 games, 7 2/3. He's given up 3 hits, 2 runs, which is a 2.35 ERA and a small sample size. 14 strikeouts in 7 2/3 innings. That is good for 16.4 per 9 innings. And again, this is against Arkansas, and he's been starting games, which tells you how they feel about him. But also, he's facing the top of the lineup. He's facing the Charles Davilons, the Ryder Helfrichs, the Brent Iredales, and he struck out 14 guys in 7 2/3 innings. I'm looking forward to seeing him pitch tonight at some point. Gabe Yackel's going to get the start, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, it's been fun to see some of this happen. But anytime there's a freshman who doesn't suck on the mound, it's like, all right, I'm willing to accept it right there. Because again, all these freshmen like Gage Wood, I mean, he pitched a lot as a freshman, really got roughed up in the fall of his freshman year. So the fact that Cole Gibbler is not even just competitive, but he's somewhat dominant at times, I feel like speaks volumes to how talented he is. And Curtis, I feel like I've caught you up to speed. You know all the important stuff. We can talk. We'll save the Michael Anderson, Kahio Aloy first base debate for another day. We'll talk about Cam Kozel another day. These are just the can't miss. You got to know about these guys. And so I hope you learned a few things. I hope that the rest of the fans, they're caught up. Anybody who's like, hey, I'll worry about baseball in February. This is all you need. Those 5 bullet points. That's all you need.
Well, yeah, that was a great rapid fire Friday to get everybody up to speed. And listen, I remember after the season ending press conference, DVH saying, hey, we want to get more athletic. And then here you are a few months later telling me about how this team is stealing a lot of bases. I feel like every single day over the course of the summer, I was seeing a tweet about something cool that Ryder Helfrich was doing, and it's carried over now into the fall. And listen, man, Australians, French, Canadians, forget America's team. Arkansas baseball is the world's team. So it's something to be excited about. But hey, that'll wrap us up for today's crossover episode, Pod the Palace Bombastic Edition. For Andrew Ellis, I'm Curtis Wilkerson with the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always, and we will see you next week. Everybody have a good one.